Hello, this video is about fruit tree grafting. John's going to be using a Bramley apple. It is a very specialist subject, as you can well imagine, but it was a successful practical earlier in the week with one of John's student groups, so we thought, why not? Let's give it a go and show you as well. Welcome to John Horsey Horticulture. John's been teaching horticulture professionally for over 30 years now, and on this channel we're hoping to help you develop your gardening skills. Whether you're new to gardening and would like some techniques on propagation, a bit of pest control, how to grow some vegetables, or whether you're a seasoned horty who could always use some extra advice and tips. If you like learning those things, do take a trip around our channel. Do follow us if you like what you see. There's no charge, just push the subscribe button. Don't forget to push the all-important notification bell. That lets you know every time we upload a new video.
Good morning everybody. Today we're looking at grafting apples. Now when you buy an apple tree, the reason why they're not as cheap as they could be is because they're not grown from pips. I mean, if we get an apple tree like this, there's a little seedling here, it's a called 2-year-old or a rootstock. If we have we just grow an apple from a pip, we don't know what it's going to be. I mean, the pip could be depending on what mum or dad was, so it could be any flavour or any shape or cooking or dessert or even cider. So that's what we don't know, and we also don't know about the root. Now, because we need to know what our apple trees are, we tend to now always grow them from rootstocks. So we would get a rootstock like this, which has actually been specially grown. You have to start somewhere. You have to go and buy these at one stage, and if you wanted to grow lots of them, you'd put a row of them along in a nursery bed. You'd cut them back, and then you'd let them shoot out again, and then every other year you would lift the whole thing up and you would take out the vegetatively grown little shoots which came off, and that's how you would increase your rootstocks. You then grow them on until you come to something like this. Now, as I said, we had to start somewhere, and we know that this one is actually what we call M26, which is quite a decent sized tree. Now, there are a whole load of different rootstocks which have been prepared for different sizes. If you want a very small one, you'd have something like M27. That's a vigorous, very early one. Or M9 for dwarf spindles and cordons. M26 we talked about. M106 is semi-dwarfing. MM111 is vigorous, and 25 is the largest tree of all. So you choose that rootstock before you start, and they are actually quite comparatively cheap to get hold of. But you know, they're probably only £2 or £3 a piece, but you may have to buy a minimum number. And this really is for specialists, but it's quite interesting to see how we could do it ourselves in a small situation. Okay, so for this process of grafting, we have the rootstock, as I've explained, and I've been along to see a friend of mine, and I've got some, well, they're shoots, but we call them scions. And these are actually scions of a Bramley, quite a nice, very, very, perhaps one of the best cookers you can get. So what we have to try and do is to match up the sizes, because I'm going to put that Bramley on that rootstock. Now, to do that, I've got to make sure first of all they've got to be related with our apples. So that's fair enough. They've got to be of a similar size, so that when we cut them off, the vascular bundles, the veins, shall we say, of the fruit tree need to match up. So if they're a similar size, we ought to be all right. Now, until recently, this was always quite an issue, because you can just make a straightforward. Let's say we made a straightforward cut across there, and then we made a straightforward cut across our scion. Now we're going to put the two together. Well, first of all, I've got the sizes wrong, haven't I? Got it completely wrong, so that wouldn't work. But the other thing, of course, is that they would slip off, and there are a whole variety of different cuts which were used to hold them up. Things with wonderful names like apical wedges and side veneer graft and whip and tongue notches. But nowadays we have a very simple tool which makes all this much more straightforward. and this is it. Now when I bought this one it was about £30, but I see now they've come right down in price and you can pick up a decent grafting set for £16. But what I'm going to do with this is to, I'm going to cut a chunk out and I'll show you what the cut will be, and you'll see why this is such a wonderful, wonderful tool. So first of all, let's get the two pieces of a similar size. So those two are very much the same, aren't they? There. So I'm going to take this rootstock. I'll go down a little bit further so that it's, and I'm putting it into the tool now. I don't know if you can see, but in there, there's a V shape. You see that V-shaped notch? That's what's going to be cut. So if I put that up against the apple, make sure I'm dead centre, and squeeze. And now what I've done is I've actually cut a notch in the top there. In fact, that's not a very central one, that's not a very good one. I'm going to do another one. So we'll go down a little bit further and try to get this one a little bit more central. So there. This, just as I did before, it's a bit tough sometimes, this. But that one's much better. Can you see that one's right in the middle? Excellent. I'm just trying to find the central, the piece on the scion, which will be the same sort of size as there, because that's going to fit in there. And that's a similar size. Okay. So now what I do is I take this one, I reverse it so that it will go the right way, and then I cut a V in this one. So now what I've done is I've got a V shape on the root, and I've got a V to go into it up on the scion here. So I put those in together, and that's a very good fit, nice and tight. You can see it's pretty good all round, and that, with any luck, will grow. And so this piece of Bramley will grow on this rootstock of M26. Now I need to, obviously I can't leave that as it is, I need to wrap it around, I need to make sure it doesn't dry out, and I'm going to use grafting tape for that. It's a bit of a fiddly job, and I'm going to make my life easier because eventually I'm going to have to cut this back. It's too much for the plant to grow. So I'm going to take it back to three side shoots there. So then I'll get my 1, 2, 3 there. And I'll take that off at a slight slant so the water runs off. And I'm going to now just graft that in there. Now to do this, as I say, we use grafting tape. This is grafting tape. So we'll be using a little bit of that, and I shall start off down here. Now this has to be tight, as tight as you can be, because we don't want water loss. So down at the bottom, tightening it, pulling tight as we go. Some people actually use cling film, which seems to work quite well. But here I am pulling push that, make sure that's right in tight, pulling that down there to give us a nice tidy graft. And there we come. Go around a few times if need be, just to make sure that it really holds. And then I'm going back up again here. Let's fold it over a little bit, but that's not going to matter. And that way we come. We're going to go just a bit more to make sure we've got it really secure, and there we can make sure that's really tightly in. Double knot, and we're away. We'll just tidy that one up. Now I will pop that one up. It will go into, we can go in the open ground or go into a pot. It's probably better in a pot to start with, because what you need to do is to keep it in a fairly sheltered spot until it starts to grow. You don't want it to get too hot or have too much pressure of sunshine on it. But once it starts to grow, and with any luck you'll get shoots coming from all three of these. Any down here you'll rub off, because that's the rootstock. And when it starts to grow, then of course it'll want better light, and you can put it into the sunshine and watch it. No, I've had people, obviously this is a long-term thing, isn't it, because this is 2 years to grow anyway. That's going to be another year to get really established. But I have had, some of my students have had fruit on their trees after 4 years, which I think is very, very good. But there we are, that's how we graft apples. You've probably come across family apples, which are when they graft several scions onto one. But that would be a much bigger rootstock to take all the 3 scions, but quite helpful when you want lots of pollinators together. So that's grafting apples. I mean, it's an interesting little thing to do. It's obviously these things have made it much easier now for the cuts, especially when you look at some of the older cuts that we used to use, which involved little notches and various things like that. So there we are. Good luck if you try this, and I hope you get lots of apples. And of course you can graft whichever one you want. I've used Bramleys there, but you could graft really any apple onto any of these rootstocks.
Well, we do hope you enjoyed that. Let us know how you got on in the comments section below. Thank you so much for joining us here in Somerset. We've really enjoyed having you. If you like that, would like to follow us, push the subscribe button, no charge, ding the notification bell. Enjoy the rest of your week. Until next time.